Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on Why Live. In this group, we believe that within each one of us is a deep why and purpose that drives us forward. And to have clarity on that why changes the game of life, really, especially in business and relationships and whatnot. So we're here to talk about the importance of why and to share a little bit what our whys are, and to uncover different ways to leverage and grow from that. My guest today is the fabulous Diane Halfman, and she was on our proof stage a few months ago and went through our why discovery process. And she's an amazing, amazing human being that is definitely dialed into her why today. Diane, welcome to Why Live.
Hey, thanks, Dan. Good to be here with you and with the Y Tribe.
Absolutely. So why don't you start off a little bit by introducing yourself to the rest of us?
Okay. My name is Diane Halfman, and I have made a lot of iterations throughout my life, anywhere from being a mom and a student to a San Diego police officer, both in uniform as well as undercover. I've been an entrepreneur. I now speak and train on standing in your own power.
Standing in your own power. So in essence, does why play a factor in standing in your own power?
Absolutely. I think when you are really clear about what your why is, I think it is easier to spread your message because you're grounded in what's moving you forward. I think there's times we actually can get distracted with what our actual why is, and that can lead to confusion and overwhelm, which allows you to go down paths that are maybe not expressing your why or what you're doing. And, some people one of the things I love about your process is that it really helps ground you back into why we're doing some of the things we're doing and how that evolves over time. And the expression of that why may change. And I think that's why there's so many people that maybe aren't clear about what their why is, because life circumstances change and they haven't really looked at how's the expression of their why changes along with that.
The expression of your why changes, right? I love the way you put that. So do you believe that people have multiple whys?
I think people have multiple expressions of their why. I think that there is one core why of what they're up to, and I think that it shows up in different ways. I think that you could articulate it in a different way, but I think that once you distill it down, there's still a core purpose of you being you. And when you are being yourself and you find out what that is for you, then I think that you can remove the layers around the parts that are not you. And then that just becomes your expression. And I think, I think at each decade of your life, I think there is a different focus and a different lesson to be learned and a way to express that. And I think if you look over time, I think as, we have older audiences that really start looking at, for some people that could be a decade. Some people, it feels like their whole life changes in a year. And when you start seeing those layers that start building up over time, I think you can start seeing, when you pull those away, what were the part that was you? How were you expressing it? What was not you? Because part of expressing your why could be you were expressing a part of you that was a polar opposite of that. And now it's giving you perspective about what you do want to have in your life and what you don't.
Absolutely. There are no mistakes or no regrets in life. Really, it's all the building blocks of making you who you are. And without that contrast, as you mentioned, it's hard to understand what's right and what's wrong, or it's hard to understand what's right when you don't know what wrong is, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So can you share with us a little bit about, what your purpose and your why is?
Yeah. My whole being, I mean, we talk about kind of like our three key words is to seek power always.
Mm.
And I look at that as that power within you. And one of the things, and I've had different times in my life where I've looked outside of myself to find out what is happening and how am I supposed to express that? But it always comes back to what is that power within me? I believe that um, I receive the, message, some people call that the universe or spirit, I call it God. I think we get these messages about, being the true version of ourselves. And when we give ourselves that space, we can access that power. I mean, it's just like any kind of power in the world, the energy that we have within ourselves. I think it's important to access that because it has messages for us. It allows us to express the bigger reason of why we're here. And I believe that I'm here is to shine that light on that for other people, to really be able to look at what is that power within you. What is it that drives you? What is it that is your purpose that allows you to express that? And I think when we're standing in our own power, it is such a vibrant beacon that people actually come to us because people want to have that, they want to discover it for themselves, and they may not even be able to articulate it, what it is for you. But when they know when they feel it in you, then it starts bubbling up. It starts this synergy of energy of you just being who you are. And I know that was kind of a bigger explanation in and around it, but the bottom line comes down to is the realization, my why is that you are your own power, right? You don't have to seek anywhere else with it. It's just, you just be it.
So when did you first discover that everything, your purpose, your power is within you? I think most people, especially younger as kids, we're always absorbing from the outside. We never look inwards for the answer, because we're raised as you don't know anything and we're going to teach you everything, and you're going to spend the next 18 years in school or however long you're going to be in school learning and learning and learning because you don't know what you're talking about, right?
Right.
So at what point in your life did you really feel like, hey, the answers are inside of me?
Great question. I don't know that there is any like one kind of like aha, like all of a sudden I realize that. I believe that there are clues along the way. I believe that there are different iterations of discovering that. I think that so for instance, like growing up, I was the only girl on my block, right? And there was all the other boys, and there was like, what are we going to do? And I found that people, you know, started asking me like, well, what are we going to do? Like, what's the game to be played? What's going to happen? And I would stand into that, right? It was an early leadership of, we're going to go on this adventure in the canyon. We're going to ride bikes. We're going to do this thing. And, just kind of this realization of, I can lead and guide, and whatever it is within me, people are coming to me to ask me about it. They want that discovery that's happening within that. I also started looking at that when I was with the police department about how, people can solve a lot of things on their own, but what drives them to call the police? Like, what is it? What happens where they feel like nothing else is working, or there's fear, or there's an emergency, and they're calling on someone? And so I started looking at people were calling on me, whether it was in my work or even starting to discover that later with my friends, where I became that call. And I started realizing that I didn't have to have, I had certain specialized training, of course, like in my work and in my life, but a lot of it was things that were just coming out of me, of who I was. I came in this world with some of this book of wisdom, if you will, that people will say something. And even in business with my clients, where they have what they call their daily crisis that is happening, and I'm their 911. I'm the one that they call for that. And I can just reach within myself, and I can just discover those things and share that with other people. Sometimes it's even a discovery for myself. Well, I'll share something with someone and I'll be like, wow, where'd that come from? Right. And I felt like there was at different times in my life where I was like, well, I have to quote who that came from, or there had to have been a specific channel that came
Right.
from, or I had to explain it. And now I feel like I don't. I'm just like, you know what? It comes from me. I don't know where it comes from, but I can just accept that power, that strength, that whatever that comes with me, that it actually delivers when it needs to.
So that's some pretty big responsibilities, right? Like when people around you, even as a kid or in a police force or anywhere else in work today, when people look at you and say, I need an answer, and you need to step into that role of always having the right answer or a solution, some sort of solution for them. Do you ever feel weighted down by that responsibility?
That's a good question. I think there's probably times, I would say I got two parts to that question, because I would say when I'm actually in it, uh, I'm not, I'm not weighed down by it at all. I think that I kind of built that muscle, and that's probably attributed to my work on the street, where I can make really quick decisions and accurate decisions in the moment. And I think it's afterwards where I really start kind of that Monday morning quarterbacking, where I start looking at, well, I could have done this, or this could have happened. And, especially like times where I was like shot at, right? It's like you're making very, reactionary decisions
Sure.
about what's happening. And afterwards you start thinking about, wow, I heard that bullet go by. It missed me. This certain thing happened. I had to make these decisions. And I think what happens is that people make the best decision in the moment, and we use all of our life experience, all of our knowledge, all of our being, all of everything. We have to trust that we're making that decision. And one of the things that I share with, not only my friends, but, my clients, is that to trust that decision. And if you feel like it wasn't necessarily the best decision, you can pivot. I don't believe that there's too many decisions that you can't shift or change, or that you can make better, or you can make a better decision next time, or you can look at it. I think where we get stuck in that whole responsibility of people get into paralysis of not making a decision, I think that's actually worse. I think it's better to just step forward, making all the best decisions you can in the moment, and then pivot.
That's, to me, it's like if you're functioning from purpose, if you understand like what makes you tick, and essentially your why, and there shouldn't be that sense of, hey, I have to step into another image, right? It's kind of just part of who you are. Speaking of image, like I know your background with San Diego PD. You were undercover. How has that experience of being undercover and putting on these different images, contributed to the puzzle pieces of what makes you?
Well, I think that I think we all have, different layers of our image, right? I think it's almost like throughout our life, we're all putting these different costumes on, whether they are figurative or they're just imaginative in a lot of ways of how we show up. And we're always trying on different versions of ourselves. And I think for me, putting on a uniform, was a different image, right? I think I would, stand taller, right? I would show up, the physicality of what that would look like. I think just putting that on gave me more confidence even to direct people. And, I even find at different times I will almost mentally put that uniform on in times where I feel like, people will I'll direct things and I'll make things happen. And actually a funny story, years ago when I was on the department, and I was actually off duty, and I was getting my hair done, and I had like a towel thing on my head and stuff. And there was a big accident outside. And I, in just reactionary mode, went out there with, the whole bib thing on and the towel and all that. And I was like directing traffic. I was like stopping people, moving people out, calling people in, and all of this thing, because I just move into that realm. Right. And so, whether or not we actually have it on or we become it, those different images show up. Same thing as a prostitute, right? I mean, you and I have had conversations around, I grew up, 12 years Catholic school. I had no idea what was happening in the prostitution world. That was a learned behavior to be able to see like what I needed to be in the image wise, and changing anywhere from clothes to language to physicality, right? In doing some of that to do my job, I could see how I can always borrow from each of those things in my life. Even when I was like dating, it was kind of like I was less intimidated because I was totally out there. As a prostitute, I could say and do and move easily in my body. So, even in my private life, I am very confident, and I can move in that way, and I can, bring on my sexy when I want to. I can be a little bit more undercover when I want to. And, there's an interesting aspect. What happens with all these images that we have of ourselves is we can use them to really convey different aspects of ourself. But I also believe that there needs to be a self-reflective time in our life too, where we're really looking at what really is me. right? What part are things I've just put on and maybe they served a purpose, or how we show up in the world. And I think this happens in business as well. We look at, we put the business hat on and we want people to see us as successful and everything looking together. However, if we don't look at the parts that aren't working for us and the things that don't show up, we can show up as imposters, or people maybe not sure, God, why do I feel weird around that person? Or, what is it? Because in our subconscious, I believe that we see the true person that's there. And when those things don't line up, that's where there's disconnects. And I think that that's where, I think that's part of what happens on social platforms too, right? We see what we call the highlights of people's life, and we're not always seeing the true aspects of them. So I think it's part of our responsibility in our own image is to share all those aspects of us, the true aspects of ourselves, and to really stand in what part of it is really us and what part of it are just maybe tools that we've used along the way to discover who the real us is.
So the trick, from what I'm hearing from you, I mean, a lot of people have this fear of not coming across as authentic and having this imposter syndrome, as you called it. You of all people being undercover as a prostitute, obviously that's not you, right? How do you, or let's put it in just layman's terms. When we go to work or whenever we're doing something and we put on these costumes of trying to be something else, how do we prevent coming across as not being authentic? There's a difference between, I'm portraying myself as an image maybe versus using it as a tool, is what I heard you say. Can you maybe touch on that a little bit more in terms of actionable, conscious thought when you're walking out the door to do something? How can you still be your authentic self by wearing something different?
Right. I think it's just a different expression of ourself, right? I think that there are certain things that, we put on. I mean, sometimes it's like a piece of jewelry, right? Or there's something that just allows us to just feel more grounded or just feel better in ourselves. I think that everything that we put on ourselves allows us to either shine up more brightly as ourselves, or it has us hide. And I think that some of these are just tools that allow us to express ourselves better. And so I think part of, especially in work environments, I think it's important to see, where is it that we're expressing ourselves in a way that we're hiding, right? Where we're not actually showing ourselves, or are we using it a way to get out there more? So I've spoke to several people where they'll kind of sit at the proverbial table, whether it's a corporate table or an entrepreneurial, think house, and they'll have these brilliant ideas. And so many people have, shared with me that unless they feel that idea is 100% correct, they won't share it. And it's a way that they're hiding their brilliance, their contribution. And what'll happen moments later is someone else, because the think tank is out there, right? They'll share the exact same thing that they were going to share.
Yeah.
And then they just feel bad because it was their idea, right? Or their initial idea that they could have had this contribution, but it was a way that they were hiding. And that's part of using that image of using the confidence, right? Whatever it is that you need to put on or you need to do or you be to do that allows you to show the authentic version of yourself. You don't want to put on the images that allow you to not be you. You want to do the parts that allow you to stand more in your power, right? That it allows you to speak, to, formulate it, and just to put yourself out there with it, right? And it's in being that those ideas come across and people get to know, and people actually respect that you maybe don't even have a fully formed thought, but you're like, you know what, hey, this is what I'm thinking. I just want to put this out there, that maybe that's where we can get into some of the collaboration and just start trusting that aspect of yourself. Because the more you shut yourself down and you second guess yourself and you don't contribute, that's where you become less and less yourself, because you're not sharing you.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for that. That's so valuable. So let me ask you something. If you look at life as a job that you applied for, so so imagine that you had an opportunity to apply for this position, Diane Halfman, where you are sitting today. What do you think the job description would be?
Wake up. I mean, it's so funny that you're even asking this because I just feel like I am at a really kind of juicy place in my life where I am not waking up now with this, like, I have to put on Diane and I have to be this certain thing, or I have to do this certain, I'm moved out of like this have tos. I believe that the new like job description, if you will, which is really just, I think the original model is to wake up and just be directed, be guided, be inspired to do whatever I'm supposed to do that day. In fact, Carrie and I've been having a lot of conversations around, I've actually taken almost everything off my plate. Like I have just cleared the slate to allow the space to see what has shown up, like what is here for me. And it comes from this place of just trusting that I'm to connect with who I'm supposed to be with, to work with who I'm supposed to be with, to step into that. Because I think there's this misconception sometimes to feel like we have to contrive all these things that we're supposed to do. And, even just all the models out here with business of, the models and the clicks and all these things that are out there, right? There's all these processes that are happening, right? And I'm in this grand experiment right now where I'm just like not doing any of that. And I am just saying, where am I being invited to be part of something, to share? And it's been a fun experience so far because I've had people just call me and say like, hey, I heard you on this random podcast over here. Or my friend says that, you are amazing at looking at space. And I know clutter is driving me nuts. And can I fly you out here and look at my space? And it's just been fun just having all these different aspects of my brilliance being called out in the world without me trying to push it and just kind of allowing. So I think that the more we go to that space of just showing up and going like, being in that curiosity, like, what am I called to do? Because when you act from that place, then it's more inspired action. It's more the true version of yourself. It's more acting from that, why are you here? Because people are actually drawn to bring that why out of you. And it's just a more fun place to come from.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Fully agree with that. And that's kind of part of the work that we do as well, is when you have, all the pieces and you understand how everything functions, it's you're your best self, right?
Yeah.
By, I always use the example of puzzles, like all these little things that happen in your life are little puzzle pieces. And we're so preoccupied with this one puzzle, trying to make it fit. You got to look at the color, you got to look at the shape, and there's all these things going on. But when you look at when you put all these pieces together, one puzzle could be, your childhood or your job or, your relationship with your father and all those things. And you look at the big vision. Well, that big vision, is your purpose, is your why. And understanding the components that build up to it makes you so freaking unique, right? There's only one self. And guess who's the best at that purpose? You are. And you just define that. So
Right.
you show up as your absolute best. And there's no competition. And there's then the laws of attraction and all those types of things happen. So I think you kind of answered it a little bit, but I just want to make sure. We did this exercise during a proof discovery process on Groundhog Day. I don't know if you remember that, but if you were to wake up every day and have to do the same thing over and over again, regardless if your paycheck was tied to it, what would your day look like?
Oh, this is one of my favorite things because I know you question me on this a lot, but I would wake up in my neighborhood because my big dream is that I own all the houses on my block and all the people, my family, my friends, the people I love, all have one of these homes. And just think of the energy that would be on this block where we got to share meals together. We got to do activities together. We got to just put this brainstorm together. I just think that we would have so much impact in the world and so much fun because I think we've lost that knowing the person who lives next door to us, that community that happens on our own block, that thing that we create together. And, we've talked about this sense of belonging.
Yeah.
I think it is so important to, whether it is your actual family or the family that you've created. And I've created both. I mean, I believe that my friends joke that I collect people, that all the people that I love, they're my people and they belong to me and I belong to them. And we have this shared life together. And I think it really just solidifies and amplifies all of our whys and our businesses, that we get to really reflect the brilliance that we're all here to have. So I would wake up on this block with all of my people, just celebrating what we get to do together.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, let me know when the next house is available for sale. Maybe we can move in there too.
Oh, you know what? I already have your address. In fact, Stacey's already seen this. I have an actual sketch of my neighborhood with the numbers, the addresses. And as my friends have come over, they've all claimed their home. I mean, I've got pictures. This is a thing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, let's wrap up a little bit. I want to be sensitive for all the viewers' times. We try and keep this right around half an hour. But please share with us, how can people get in touch with you? How can people learn more about you? Maybe a deeper dive into your story, or newsletters, or what are you looking for, and how can people engage with you?
Oh, thank you. Well, you can definitely see me on witnesstheproof.com, of course. You can see a little bit of my story and more of our interviews there. One of the things I like, when I talk about people standing in their power, I believe that you come with that power.
Mm.
And I talk a lot about resetting that power, because I don't feel like you actually lose it. There's just distractions that happen and you need to reclaim that power within yourself. So one of the ways you can start just kind of getting to know me and having some tools around that is going to resetyourpowergift.com. And that's just a checklist for you to really look at, where are you giving away that power? Where are you standing in that? It's one of the tools that can allow you to just see where you're at. And I think when you have that awareness, you can then make choices. You can start really reclaiming that part that is really you, and start letting go of the part, letting go of the parts that are not you. And of course, you can always connect with me on social media. I would love for you guys to either put comments wherever you watch this from, or even Facebook Messenger. And any way I can support you, I'd be happy to do that.
So that's resetyourpowergift.com, and then we'll drop the link below here for everybody as well. Absolutely a pleasure catching up with you, Diane. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Are there any last minute thoughts or anything else you'd like to add?
I would just say, whatever it is that you are most afraid of, right? Look at it really deeply and find out there is a message in that. You may have to show up differently in the world, but utilize fear, use the energy of fear to find your courage.
Wow. Cool. That's a good way to end this. Hey, Diane, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Why Live. And we're hoping to do one of these once a week, just a deep dive onto understanding how we can leverage our why, get a better understanding of why, and essentially, as we discussed today, how to show up as your highest self and how to leverage everything around you, whether it's a uniform or some kind of fear that you can leverage. So stay tuned, and look forward to doing this again next week. Diane, thank you again for your time. Everybody have a wonderful day.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.